finally, the last part of today's Zoom celebration is me sharing how this vitamin C, how my beliefs, I guess you could say, about vitamin C fit into my larger vision for my business. So my business is called RiseUP with Susan May. And many of you may have gathered that the UP stands for Unplugging Peacefully. Now, for me, unplugging is more than just, say, unplugging from my iPhone for the day or Facebook or technology. I use unplugging in a way that signifies unplugging from the mainstream culture. And so there are three main areas that I focus on when I think about this, and that is mainstream education, media, and medicine. And so it's fairly obvious how vitamin C relates to medicine, right? We've all seen, and Tinica was hitting on this, right? Like, the more we learn about the power of vitamin C, the more we see that we don't need maybe all of these drugs. We don't need laxatives. We don't need painkillers. We don't need over-the-counter cough syrups and cold medicine, right? And those are just three examples. As we become more healthy, maybe with food allergies, right? Katie's story is an amazing example of that. That it can take care of allergies, it can take care of autoimmune issues. So we saw this with Theo Farmer too, right? He and I are of the same mind and the belief that if the true power of vitamin C was like unleashed on the world and everyone knew about it, it literally would transform the world. Pharmaceutical companies would basically be put out of business. And that is pretty amazing when you start realizing the power of vitamin C. And so that's one way that vitamin C is related to unplugging. The media and medicine are a little bit more indirect. Media, for me, is still fairly obvious. The big thing is that the media ignores this. It ignores the power of vitamin C. And if the media would share this like it should be shared, if it was shared like wildfire, then we would have a lot more trust in them, right? When people start understanding how powerful vitamin C is, and they start realizing, wait a minute, like, why isn't this news being spread? They begin to distrust the media. Now, at first, when you start distrusting people that you used to trust, it's a little scary. You feel nervous, you feel like, oh my gosh, everything I thought was true isn't true. But it actually leads to a more empowered state. You become more confident in yourself. And so my personal belief is that if people knew about vitamin C, the past 2 years of our lives would all have been very different, because the media would not have been able to keep the fear levels at the same high level that they have for the past 2 years. If people understood that they could take charge of their health, there wouldn't have been a way for them to fearmonger the way they have. Education is a little bit, like I said, it's not as obvious. But for me, I believe that our education system has basically indoctrinated generations of people to the point where most people look to experts and authority figures for right answers. And so what you all just did in this vitamin C challenge is the antithesis of this. You didn't look to an expert. In fact, I kept telling you, I'm not an expert. I want you to learn about vitamin C, and I want you to apply it to your life. And so vitamin C is kind of a, it shows you how education should be, right? It should be us empowering ourselves with information, and it should be us learning to trust our own brains, our own intuition. So where am I? So basically what I've created is a community for people who are drawn to unplugging from the mainstream and to these alternative paths for information gathering, for education, and for health. And so before I move on, I just want you all to know that medical freedom is a core belief that all members of the RiseUP community embrace. And when I say medical freedom, Most people know what that means, but there are many that have not heard of that before, believe it or not. And so medical freedom means that we are all autonomous and we all have the right to decline medical procedures. We all have the right to decide what goes into our body. And so there is no forced or mandated or coerced medicine if you believe in medical freedom. And so if you are still on board with me, if that's still something you're interested in, the RiseUP community could be a place where you feel really at home and you feel supported.